Imagine holding a 600-year-old book in your hands. Every single page is crafted from the skin of a calf. Parchment, the most expensive writing material of the Middle Ages. The ink on its surface remains as vibrant, lustrous, and mysterious as the day it was first applied. What might keep you awake for days, pushing the very boundaries of your mind, is not what is written inside this book, but how it is written. The alphabet, grammar, words, and sentences used in this manuscript resemble no other language that exists, or has ever existed, on this planet. It is not Latin, it is not ancient Greek, it is not Arabic, nor is it some forgotten Eastern dialect. The world's most brilliant linguists, the cryptologists who cracked secret military codes during World War II and challenged Nazi Germany's famous Enigma machine, professors from the most advanced universities like Oxford and Harvard, and even today's greatest technological breakthrough, artificial intelligence, all stood powerless before this book. Everyone tried to read just one sentence, one single paragraph, but they all crashed into the exact same wall and were thrown back. Welcome to the deepest layers of lost pages, hidden archives, and dark secrets concealed from humanity. Today, we are turning the pages of history's greatest intellectual trap, the Voynich Manuscript. And there's no guarantee that anyone will emerge from this dark labyrinth safe, sound, or with their sanity intact. Our story begins in the year 1912, within the thick, dark walls of an ancient monastery, the Villa Mondragone in Frascati, Italy. Wilfrid Voynich, a Polish book collector and antiquarian, was reviewing ancient, dusty manuscripts that the monastery wanted to sell secretly due to financial difficulties. From one of the oak chests brought out by the monks, chests that perhaps no one had touched for centuries, emerged a book of such a nature that the moment Voynich opened its first page, he felt time stand still and the air in the room grow heavy. The book had no cover, no author's name, and no date of composition. Yet, as the pages turned one by one, Voynich realized he was touching not just an ordinary historical document, but a treasure hidden from humanity. Inside the book, a piece of ancient, bent, and yellowed parchment was found. This historical letter, dated 1666, was written by John Marcy, the rector of Prague University. In it, he was practically begging Athanasius Kircher, one of the greatest scholars of the era, to decipher the book. The letter contained a chilling and mind-boggling detail. Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II had paid a fantastic sum, exactly 600 gold ducats, to acquire this book. In those days, that amount of money was a massive fortune, enough to maintain an entire army for months or purchase several villages. Why had an emperor, a ruler who kept hundreds of brilliant scientists and astrologers in his court, spent such a fortune on a book that no one could read and whose author was unknown? Did the emperor know what was hidden between these pages? Or had he simply been deceived? Wilfrid Voynich dedicated the rest of his life, until his very last breath, to finding answers to these questions. But he became merely the first official victim of this terrifying and mystical labyrinth. The book took his name, but it took his mind along with it. As you flip through the pages of the manuscript, your visual perception is upended, and your mind drifts away from your body, because the scene you encounter is one of pure illusion and surrealism. The book is organized very systematically into different sections, much like a scientific encyclopedia. The first and largest section is botanical, It is all about plants. Look closely at these illustrations. They are drawn with great precision using green, brown, and blue inks. The root systems, the veins of the leaves, the structures of the flowers, the seed pods. Everything is executed down to the smallest detail. Yet, there's a terrifying, shocking anomaly here. Not a single one of these plants perfectly matches any of the tens of thousands of plant species existing on Earth. The world's leading botanists and plant geneticists analyzed these drawings thousands of times. For example, the leaves of one plant resemble wild parsley or celery, but its root section possesses the structure of completely different sea anemones or a decaying parasite. It is as if the author surgically severed the body parts of different plants and combined them into a single bizarre or fantastic entity, creating a sort of Frankenstein's flora. Alternatively, this book describes the ecosystem of an entirely different planet or dimension, one where we have never set foot. If these plants are real, where do they grow? Where had the author seen them? Next comes the astronomical and astrological section, which plunges the viewer into an even deeper state of meditation and dread. It features circular diagrams, complex star charts, and strange symbols of the sun and moon. Some pages fold out to reveal massive celestial maps. But at the center of these diagrams, instead of our familiar classical zodiac signs, there are miniature human figures holding strange inscriptions. The most astounding detail, one that leaves the scientific world at a complete dead end, is that certain star clusters, nebulae, and galaxies are drawn at such angles and with such spiral precision that it was technically impossible for the human eye of that era to see them by just looking at the sky. The invention of the telescope and Galileo's observations of the heavens were still 2 centuries away. How, then, could the author of this book know the shape of the Andromeda Galaxy or other spiral star systems? What device was he using to look at the sky? Or was he not looking from Earth at all, but rather originating from among those very stars? However, the most unsettling section of the book, the one that makes your skin crawl just looking at it, is undoubtedly the biological and hydrological section. On these pages, we see dozens, even hundreds of female figures who are completely nude, wearing no clothing at all. These women are immersed in pools and networked canals filled with a strange, green, thick, and murky fluid. And these pools are connected to one another by highly complex tubes that resemble the internal veins of the human body, the digestive system, or industrial pipelines. Some of the women are kneeling inside this green fluid. Some hold strange rods in their hands, and others seem to ensure the operation of this system like the cogs of a machine in a factory. What do these drawings symbolize? Secret anatomical and gynecological experiments conducted in hidden basements, forbidden by the Church during the Middle Ages? The process of creating the elixir of eternal youth and immortality by alchemists? Or the instructions of an ancient genetic engineering and cloning system used to harvest or breed humans, something humanity has not yet comprehended? Looking at the pictures, you feel that every detail has a profound meaning, but we are too blind to see it. The answers to all these visual riddles and frightening drawings are actually hidden between the lines written beside, above, and below the pictures. But the problem is that those lines constitute an completely impenetrable fortress. The book contains approximately 170,000 characters, and these characters possess a distinct order. The letters are written continuously, spaces are left between words, and the paragraphs and lines display perfect visual alignment. Linguists simply call this unknown language Voynichese. At first glance, it might seem to anyone like a meaningless, random jumble of letters written by an insane person or a brilliant fraud to deceive people. But science and mathematics do not accept fraud. In science, there is a crucial linguistic rule known as Zipf's law. This law proves that in every real language, be it Azerbaijani, English, Chinese, or ancient Latin, the most frequently used words exist in a specific mathematical proportion and harmony with the words that rank second and third. If you were to sit at a computer and randomly strike keys, or write an entire book using made-up words, you would unconsciously violate this mathematical law. This is because the human mind cannot maintain this deep mathematical harmony when consciously inventing a random language. And here's the greatest fact that shocks and terrifies the scientific world. The language of the Voynich Manuscript obeys Zipf's law perfectly, 100%. What does this mean? It means this book is not a hoax. A real language with its own grammatical rules, based on internal logic, phonetics, and syntax, was used in this book. It is just that no one in the world knows this language except the person who wrote it. Perhaps this language is the lost native tongue of an entire nation, completely erased from the face of the earth. Let us flip through history a bit more and look at how this book drove people mad. During World War II, the most brilliant cryptologist of the U.S. military, William Friedman, who changed the course of the war by deciphering Japan's supposedly unbreakable purple military code, dedicated the last 20 years of his life to this book. Leaving behind military intelligence tactics and state secrets, he stared at these pages day and night in his home. Friedman had created a special team of experts to crack the language of the manuscript. They analyzed every single letter, but no results materialized. In our era, at a time when technology has reached its peak, supercomputers and artificial intelligence were deployed. Scientists at the University of Alberta in Canada taught artificial intelligence hundreds of ancient languages and uploaded the Voynich Manuscript into its memory. After checking millions of combinations and algorithms, the AI claimed that the book is an encrypted form of ancient Hebrew with its vowels removed. The scientific world stood up in celebration. Everyone thought the mystery was solved. However, when they read the first sentences translated by the computer using this algorithm, everything collapsed. The resulting text read, "She made recommendations to the priest, the house, and me, and the people." A completely meaningless collection of sentences, grammatically disconnected and consisting entirely of the absurd. The most advanced digital intellect, the greatest technological power of humanity, also fell to its knees before this 600-year-old calfskin, accepting defeat and retreating. The book did not surrender its lock to the digital world either. So, who wrote this mysterious work? Where and for what purpose? To find a scientific answer to this question without speculation, scientists in 2009 cut a small piece of parchment from the pages of the book and sent it to the laboratory of the University of Arizona for radiocarbon dating. The result was precise beyond any shadow of a doubt. The material on which the book was written was prepared between 1404 and 1438, the first half of the 15th century. This discovery permanently shattered many popular theories in history. For instance, for decades, it was believed that the brilliant Leonardo da Vinci wrote this book in his youth, using his own secret cipher and language to protect himself from the Church's Inquisition courts and persecution. But the radiocarbon analysis showed that when this parchment was prepared and the book was written, there were still several decades left before Da Vinci was even born. Similarly, the name of the brilliant English scholar Roger Bacon, who lived in the 13th century and was ahead of his time in the fields of optics and chemistry, was also erased from the authorship list by this analysis. He too had lived long before this book. This being the case, only a few serious theories remain, though each is more frightening and bizarre than the last. Let us descend into the deepest layers of these theories. The first theory is connected to the dark world of alchemists, ancient physicians, and secret societies. Picture Europe in the Middle Ages. The Church considered every type of scientific research, medical experiment, and preparation of herbal medicines to be a direct work of the devil. Witchcraft. Any physician who secretly dissected a human body to learn anatomy, or extracted the juice of plants to heal the sick, faced the threat of being burned alive at the stake. Could it be that an anonymous, brilliant scientist and physician living in the 15th century had made discoveries that would advance medical science by perhaps 1,000 years? Perhaps he had found the real cure for terrifying diseases that were incurable at the time, such as the plague, cancer, or leprosy, or perhaps the secret to extending human life and renewing cells. And to pass this deadly yet sacred knowledge down to future generations while simultaneously protecting himself from the bloody clutches of the Church, he designed a completely new artificial language that conformed to no standard code-breaking logic. If this theory is correct, we are currently standing before a fundamental medical encyclopedia, the notes of a genius mind that could radically change the destiny and history of medicine. But unfortunately, we have been deprived of the key that opens that lock, and while that information is right before our eyes, we cannot use it. The second theory relies on the darker side of human nature, a claim of grand fraud and greed for money. The court of Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II was filled with eccentric people. He invited anyone who lived at the border of science and magic and engaged in alchemy to his court. 2 world-famous sorcerers, astrologers, and fraudsters named Edward Kelly and John Dee lived in this palace. For years, they extorted large sums of money and gold from the emperor by claiming they spoke with the spirits of the dead, communicated with angels, and had found the philosopher's stone, capable of turning base metals into gold. Some skeptical historians believe that the Voynich Manuscript is the greatest and most ingenious fraud scenario Edward Kelly constructed during his lifetime. To extort those 600 gold ducats we mentioned from the emperor, Kelly locked himself in a secret room for months, drew plant pictures that do not exist in this world, somehow sensed the mathematical requirements of Zipf's law to invent a fake language of angels, and presented it to the emperor at a high price as the secret science of King Solomon, or the language of the angels. The emperor bought the book and sat before it for the rest of his life, waiting for a miracle. However, this theory gets stuck on one point: the idea that a single human being, with the scientific and mathematical level of the 15th century, could invent such a perfect language consisting of 170,000 characters and containing not a single writing error or erasure, solely for money, severely weakens the probability of the fraud hypothesis from a scientific standpoint. This is because there is not a single draft or erasure in the book. The author wrote this book as if under dictation, transferring a text that was completely ready in his mind, continuously and in a single breath. This is something only someone who speaks that language can do, not a fraudster. And finally, the last claim, the one most loved by ufologists, sci-fi enthusiasts, and mystery lovers, the one that robs people of their sleep at night. The absence of the plants depicted in the book from Earth, the star chart showing spiral galaxies with such precision without a telescope, and the strange structure of the women living in the green fluid inside biological pools prove only one thing to some. This book does not belong to this world. According to the claim, an extraterrestrial representative of a civilization that came to Earth centuries ago, perhaps crashing and getting stranded here, or one living in a different, parallel dimension in the same space as us, transferred the flora of their native world, the positions of the stars visible in their sky, and the reproductive and biological systems of their race onto this calfskin. They wrote the diary of their home, their planet, here, and then went away, forgetting this book in our world. And now, we're looking at an ancient alien encyclopedia, but we do not possess the intellectual level to read it. Today, the Voynich Manuscript is kept in the United States, at Yale University's Voynich Rare Book and Manuscript Library, inside a specially protected vault made of steel and glass, where the temperature, light, and humidity are regulated by computers every second. Every year, hundreds of brilliant scientists, codebreakers, and adventurers from different countries come here with special permissions to touch those pages, hoping to read that first word that might change the course of history. But just as it has for centuries, the book maintains its deep, silence-filled quietude today as well. Perhaps the Voynich Manuscript was never intended to be read. Perhaps it is an eternal, mystical lock, protecting a supreme knowledge that humanity is not yet ready for, not yet morally and scientifically capable of fully comprehending. Or, putting everything else aside, it is the last, greatest, and most brutal joke played by a lonely genius whose name has been erased from history. A joke played upon the supercomputers, artificial intelligences, and brilliant minds of the future who consider themselves the masters of the world. What do you think is hidden within these yellowed pages? A secret science that could be humanity's salvation? A message coming from another world? Or a grand illusion and lie created by a genius mind? Where is the exit to this labyrinth? Be sure to write your guesses and thoughts in the comments, because perhaps the correct key lies within your very mind. That is all for today from the dark archive of lost pages. To continue turning pages with us, shed light on the forgotten, dusty corners of history, and discover these hidden worlds, do not forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and turn on notifications. Remember, the truth is always between the hidden pages. To avoid remaining in the dark, stay with science